Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be going over this primary arms 1 to 8 Platinum Series scope. So before we get into all the details of it, I kind of want to go over what it is. So like you, I have become accustomed to primary arms offering exceptionally valued budget optics. So they've been very good at that, typically in the $300 to $150 to $300 range, right? So they give us lots of good things, great red dots, great scopes, but they tend to be budget friendly. So primary arms really strayed from what they're known for, if you will, in this one. But this one, in my opinion, is an excellent optic. We're going to tell you why here in just a minute. But I wanted to explain that this, although it says primary arms on it, is a premium scope. So one thing I want to point out with the 1x8 is that if you look at the specs of this scope and then go over to compare it to the loophole scope that it, I guess, is a competitor with, if you will. Go ahead and look at the specs. They're pretty much identical. So, and that scope costs thousands of dollars more than this one. So I'm just going to put that out up front. It's simply exceptional. Everything about it's great, great glass. The clicks, everything that we're going to get into here in a minute is just great. But I know a lot of people have a hard time sort of comprehending the primary arms name on the side and then the price tag of it. So what we're going to do here is kind of show you what it is, how the different specs all work out, how the controls work, the reticle itself, and come back at the end and let you know what we think of it overall. We'll start out with some basic features of the scope. First off, we have the eye focus ring here on the back, and we'll kind of work our way forward. You want to definitely set this, particularly on a first focal plane optic, up for your eye. I suppose I should do a video on how to do that one day, but it is in the owner's manual. But most folks are going to need to adjust this just a touch. For instance, mine was right about here for my eye, but you definitely want to set it again on a first focal plane optic like this one. It tends to be a little bit more important. So go ahead and do that. On that note, it is first focal plane like we just talked about. So what that means is that the reticle is going to stay the same and you're able to range at any magnification. So here in the 1 power setting, your range estimation will be just the same as it would be on the 8 power setting. And we're going to show you a little bit about the reticle here later on in the video. So here's where we adjust our magnification. You can see there we have it set on 1 power. And we're going to show you, we're going to roll in an image of the reticle here on 1 power. What you can see is one thing that is awesome about this scope, and you guys will hear me say this in many reviews. I've said it in the past. I'll probably continue to say it in the future. I've never, to date, ever seen a true 1 power scope. Variable power scope. I just haven't. They tend to be 1.1 or 1.25 or whatever, even though they say they're 1. Now, this scope is the closest I've ever seen to true 1 power. Again, you can see the pictures that we're rolling in here of that reticle, and very, very little difference in terms of the size of what you're looking at versus things around it. So kudos to them on that. It's actually the first thing I noticed when I got it in was just how close it was to a true 1 power. I was very excited about that because it's, again, the closest I've ever seen. So good on them for that, no doubt about it. So anyway, back to the ring. There's 1 power, and you switch it over all the way to 8 power. Now, a couple things about just the mechanics of this. Very, very smooth all the way. There's no need to sort of break it in like you'd see on some of the lower priced optics or lower tier optics, I should say. Smooth all the way. Just when you feel it, it feels quality. It feels, I don't know how else to describe it, but it feels high end, if you will. So cannot complain about that. The only change I would make if it was me and I was designing this scope is I would put a little bit bigger knob on there just to kind of let you grab it a little bit easier and get a better purchase on it. But some folks like the low profile so that way it doesn't get snagged in your gear. So I suppose it's sort of a personal preference thing at that point. Continuing to move forward onto the tube, it's a 34 millimeter tube. So the most common mounts out there are going to be 30 millimeter, which we'll show you here in a second. But you're going to want to make sure you get 34, or else obviously it won't fit. Those tend to be sort of, again, higher end optics that have that sort of tube. Not a whole lot of mounts out there for them, but if you want a cantilever mount, this American Defense Recon mount is fantastic. I recommend these all the time to people over on my Facebook page and anywhere else where people ask. They just work really, really well, and they don't break the bank. I mean, they're not cheap, but they're compared to some of the other ones out there that are twice as much. In my opinion, they give you just as much functionality and obviously save you a little bit of money there. So that's certainly important. So 34 millimeter tube. We'll get over here to the illumination. So here's our illumination dial. There's some cool things about it. So right here where that little dot is, that's actually what setting you're on. So as you can see right now, we're in 7. And then when you go to the in-between numbers there, that's actually off. So what I like about that, and I've mentioned this in other scope reviews, is that if you want to set it to, let's say it's a home defense scope, for instance, right? And with your home defense light or whatever the case may be, you need to have it on 9 power, or that's your personal preference anyway. So you can set it right there on 8 and 9 in between, and then as soon as you need to that reticle to be illuminated, just move it 1 and it's on that setting. If you want to turn it off, all you need to do is move it back, and that way you'll preserve your battery life. So of note, there are also night vision settings on there. So that's something that a lot of the lower end scopes won't give you. This one certainly does. And just the clicks, really, really nice. Everything's positive, engages well. Nothing at all to complain about here. On the illumination, I should have mentioned that it is daylight bright. So without question, at least in my experience, even in bright sunlight, with all the mirage coming off the clay that I typically shoot in, if you get about 7, 8, and 9, any of those settings are going to give you daylight visibility even in the brightest sunlight. So again, that's something you're just not going to see in some of the lower priced optics out there. Now, me personally, I generally don't use illuminated reticles during the day, but of course we test it when we're reviewing scopes here, because I know some folks do like that feature. So I test it out and it does work very, very well. Moving on to the windage and elevation. So of course this is the ACSS reticle, but the ACSS reticle is based in a mil system. Again, we'll explain this a little bit more here in just a second. And these turrets, both the elevation and windage, are adjustable in 1/10 mil clicks. One thing that's really nice about it is that it does lock. So for instance, in the down position, which is the locked position that we're in now, you cannot turn the reticle at all. It's very tight. There's no slop, no playing it at all. When you want to actually dial in your dope, or zero it for that matter, you're just going to pull up on it, and you can see the little hashtags right there to let you know that you're all the way up. And then from that point on, you can make your adjustments in just in 1/10 mils, I should say. Very, very positive, yet smooth. You know you're making them. And when you have it set where you go, you just lock it back down and you're good to go. You can also set a 0 stop on there, so you can set it up once you get your 0, take the turret off, put it back on, so that way you can always have your return to 0 if you're dialing in dope. Again, there are 2 different reticles, the ACSS and the mil-based reticle. On the ACSS, I don't really see a ton of need for that, but on the mil-based reticle, it's certainly a good option for guys who want to dial in rather than hold over. Illumination on the optic comes from the battery right here, which is in your illumination dial. If you hold the actual little part that you turn and unscrew the cap, you'll see that once we get it off, it is one CR2032 battery that provides your illumination. So pretty common stuff. I actually have a whole bunch of them in my battery drawer. A lot of optics out there take them. You can get them on Amazon relatively cheap, so not uncommon at all. I've even seen them in Walmart, so I do know they're out there in pretty good numbers. A couple other things I wanted to touch on while we have it here, just off there, is to talk about the eye relief. So one big thing on this scope that I love is the eye relief. Anytime you get into magnification, particularly above 4 power, a lot of scopes tend to suffer from a really, really short eye box. This is not the case with this one. So in the 1 power position here, the eye relief on it, at least the base eye relief, is 3.98 inches. Then when you throw it all the way over to 8 power, it only goes down to 3.86 inches. So that's very negligible. You probably won't notice it. I didn't notice it at all. Once you set it up for the eye relief you want, there's no need to adjust your neck or head position when you dial up the magnification. One thing about the 1x8 is that it's sort of heavy. The primary arms optic here is not alone in that. Most of the 1x8 scopes out there fall into that category. So this one weighs in at 26 ounces. versus the 1x6 primary arms ACSS reticle scope that we have here, which weighs in at 17 ounces. I will be reviewing this one of these days, but I assure you it's a very good optic. But this is sort of a budget optic versus obviously the high-end 1x8 that we see here. And you can see some of the differences. We have a 30mm tube versus a 34mm tube, much beefier turrets for sure. Shorter eyepiece here. And then also the big difference is going to be the glass, and it's really hard to show clarity of glass in videos. There's really no way to do it that I know of, but it's excellent. The entire scope here in the 1x8 is made in Japan to include the glass, and I've shot some pretty high-end scopes in my life. This glass is right there with them. The clarity is phenomenal. The edge blur is so minimal, it's almost imperceivable. To most people, honestly, I think it would be imperceivable. Just excellent all the way around, but the weight is something you just can't get away from. So, you know, do you want the extra weight? I don't know. If you have a lightweight sort of home defense type rifle, probably not. But if you're going for a DMR type rifle where you're going to be, you know, relatively regularly shooting beyond 300 meters, then I think the extra 2 power is very nice. Additionally, the clarity of the glass is very nice. And the weight probably won't be as big of a deal, but the weight's not oppressive. Don't get me wrong; it's totally handleable. But you know, the difference in ounces, they do add up over time. So it just sort of depends where you want to put that weight. And the mount is also going to be a little bit heavier. So depending on your mount, it's tough to say how much weight you're going to add. But most of the 34mm mounts are a little bit beefier than the 30mm mounts. Like I mentioned earlier, there's 2 different reticles that come with this scope. You can get the mill one, or you can get the ACSS. Now, if you asked me 4 or 5 years ago which one I would get, I would have told you the mill one. Now, I've come around to really like the ACSS system. I think it's the best ballistic reticle on the market for sure. I have a 20-minute video for those of you guys that are interested in it, where I go over it in excruciating detail, but it will really explain all the intricacies of it. I'm going to try to give you a quick overview here. So on the target that you're looking at here, we're going to show you how to range estimate someone who is either facing you, standing up, or is in the prone position. This is calibrated for someone who is 18 inches at the torso, which is what the military uses doctrinally for range estimation. So you can see the outline of this person around the 400-meter line, and that will tell you if they fit in that box that person's approximately 400 meters if they're giving you that angle. So the problem is, not everyone always wants to give you that angle on them. In real life, people that are shooting at you or you're shooting at don't always let you range estimate them as well as you'd like to. So there are other ways to do it in this reticle. If you look over here on this image, this is showing you another way to range estimate someone who is 400 meters away. So if they are standing up and they're 5'10", which is again the doctrinal based height of an average person according to the military, this person, as if they're standing around walking on patrol, would give you a range estimation, I should say, to 400 meters. So that's one way to do it. And what you see here is some movement holds. So this right here is someone who's moving at 8.6 miles per hour. Somebody who's doing sort of a range jog, if you will, is going to be half of that. But a sprint, again, according to military doctrine, is 8.6 miles per hour. And that's where you would hold on moving targets. Now, one thing a lot of you guys out there watching who know this will verify what I'm saying is that, you know, in recent conflicts, whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan, you'd be out there overwatching like an alley, and insurgents would sprint across, take a couple pop shots, a convoy or out of patrol or whatever the case may be, and they'd certainly be moving. So this is a way to aid in that type of situation. So if that's the case, this will give you a way to range estimate real quick for a snapshot, depending on what distance you're at, and engage that target. And also, if you look down the middle, you'll see those little dots off to the side. Those are wind holds. So those are wind holds at different distances, because in real life, obviously, it's not a static range. It has wind. It's a dynamic environment. And that's something you always have to take into consideration. I think we covered most of the details there. One thing I want to cover that we didn't already is going to be that this scope has a lifetime warranty. So lifetime warranty, when it came out at first, it didn't have a lifetime warranty, and that was something that a lot of folks complained about. Primary Arms listened, they took those concerns, and now offer a lifetime warranty with it. So good on them for that, especially at the price point of this optic. Really happy to see that. And I think a lot of folks are too. So if you're going to spend your money on it, you know you're going to be taken care of if there should ever be an issue down the road. Now let's talk about money. As money is always important. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, take a look at the specs of that loophole and then come over and look at this one. Virtually identical. That loophole is going to be, again, thousands more, and this one comes in at $1,299. So $1,299 currently, which is a lot. A lot of people don't want to spend that for an optic. I don't blame you. I'm not telling you you have to. I'm not a guy. I'm not going to do it. There's plenty of good budget optics out there. But if you want something that's excellent, has a good, obviously, magnification range here, as close to true 1 power as I've ever seen. I mean that. I've never seen a scope that's closer to true 1 power. It's pretty much the same if you guys have seen a Triticon MRO, which has a little magnification to it. That's exactly what this looks like when you look through it in terms of magnification at the low setting. So very, very good optic in terms of close-up work. If you're a 3-gunner competitive shooter, or someone who wants a magnified optic for an HD gun, home defense gun, absolutely 100%. I would take a good look at this. You know, it's right in the same price range as a lot of ACOGs, and ACOGs are great. I recommend them all the time. We've recommended them here on the channel, but this is going to give you obviously a little bit better capability to go close and then extend out at distance. So the glass is actually, in my opinion, a little bit better than ACOG, and I realize that's sort of a controversial statement, but I stand by it. It is, and it's, if you're looking at that kind of optic, I would take a look at this one as well. Very, very good, high quality. I've not had a single issue with it in any way even imaginable. So you guys are going to continue, I guarantee, to see this one on the channel for years to come. Really, really like it, in case you haven't picked up on that. But yeah, if you have the budget and it fits a role that you're looking for, highly recommend you take a look at it. I think that's about it. If you guys have any questions about this scope or anything else we review here on the channel, by all means post below in the comments section. You can also post over at my Facebook page as always. But thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video.